taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. We've got you covered from interviews with developers, game writers, content creators, and influencers. And it's all in English. Join us by checking out Monday and Friday each week for the last 30 minutes of the show. This week, I am joined by Rob Cesternino to talk about all things Final Fantasy XIV, including our game, the new feature additions, and updates which we are looking forward to seeing in the coming months. We get into Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood to find out exactly what we can expect from patch 7.3, why players should care, which guild masters they selected, and more. Lastly, Rob looks back on 2015 and breaks down the news of the day in video game podcast form as well. Check it out below and make sure to subscribe to the Augmented Reality Podcast so that you don't miss out. And if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, this was a bit of an experiment. What I just read to you, the whole introduction there, was written by a neural network called Talk to Transformer, which is based on OpenAI's GPT-2 language model. This is something that has just recently come online, I believe. And anyway, I plugged the first sentence of my script into this tool, and it wrote the rest of that paragraph. I believe this is your cousin, Cyb.
Not cousin. Like brother twice removed.
Sounds like you have. Sounds like you haven't fully booted up there.
No, I always have this problem when it's a freaking apocalypse outside. I don't know if you know, but yeah, it's basically the apocalypse outside. So yeah, it's great.
Niv Ozzy says, "Is it me or Ash's voice sound weird?" I don't know. Possibly. It is early morning here, and this is always a weird time to sort of get your voice going. I should have done some vocal warm-ups or something.
You know, we do this so that it's like, you know, afternoon and early morning or early afternoon for the folks out in Europe, and early afternoon for the folks out on the East Coast. We don't live anywhere close to either one of those places.
It is ridiculously early for a Saturday for us. But anyway, yeah. So as I said, that tool that I just was using it's at talktotransformer.com. I've got an entire video coming where I asked this thing all about some of our favorite gaming topics, and it came up with some very entertaining answers. But anyway, for real, this is your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry. It is June 1st, and of course this is the Saturday edition of the show. My name is Ashenity, and the other voice you're hearing is Cyberpunk. Hello if you're listening live. Please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well, and we appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up to the audio platforms, so if you want to get the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. All right, everybody, let me see. Is my live chat actually going to behave today? Oh, man, I lost some of the earliest messages. Oh, well. Hello, Cloudstrife, Z-Brave, Lou. Lou is looking for a decent game to play while waiting for Cyberpunk because Rage 2 and Anthem were both disappointments. So if anyone's got some suggestions, definitely drop those Lou's way. Ghost Fixer, Notional, Minty66, Niv Ozzy. Did I say some of these already? No, I didn't. And then Mess Meg, Rave, and there's a lot of talk about the hype over Cyberpunk 2077 in our chat this morning, whether the hype is too high and if it's going to lead to disappointment. And unfortunately, I mean, that's always a risk with these heavily hyped titles. I am anticipating that we are going to get a good product. Is it going to be everything that everybody hoped and dreamed for? I mean, I don't know. But then again, I mean, I'm not one who played, the Cyberpunk pen and paper version, so there's probably some differences there in terms of, in terms of what you're expecting from the game, right? Would you say so?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so overall, it's like we have a saying. It's like, we don't have a saying. I have this theory where it's like good games are really good and are really important, but they don't cure cancer. So there are some people who are like, oh my god, this is going to be the end all be all of all greatest things ever. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist in any situation. So,
yeah,
maybe not necessarily try to convince yourself of that all the time. Like, yeah, that's what I would say. Just generally speaking, don't assume that it's gonna fill everything that you're missing in your life. If you're looking for anything, this includes like relationships, and this includes, a job, living in a particular place. Like if you're expecting it to do literally everything and anything for you, then you're out of balance, and you need some more balance in your life.
Yeah,
basically,
it is. At the end of the day, it's just a video game now. This is something, of course, we are involved in this fandom, and I mean it's very important to us. But it's definitely, I mean, it's not going to be the be all and end all. There's going to be more games in the future. There's going to be other stuff to get excited about. But it's just definitely, I mean, I don't know. When you're a fan of something, the excitement and the hype is at least half, I would say, at least half of the fun that you have. Waiting for a game to come out is at least maybe even more so than actually playing the game itself. But I mean, that's probably different for everybody. But
it's like what they say about it's like what humans say about pain. The anticipation is worse than or is it better than? I can never remember with you.
Oh, it's
humans.
You ever take an anxiety-riddled 8-year-old to get a needle? Oh boy, it's worse. All right, I'm laughing at some of the time. Schoolaman, we've got listening from Australia, 11 p.m. there, and Mess Meg, apparently it's 15 o'clock p.m. in Poland. So that's interesting. And Minty's listening is 9 a.m. Okay. We will get into the actual news now. So lots of stuff to talk about today. Of course, we had some interesting tweets from Jason Schreier about the Cyberpunk 2077 release date. We are going to dive into that first thing here. But other things we're going to talk about today. Larian Studios is teasing something. And the initial assumption is, of course, that it is Divinity Original Sin 3. But could it possibly be Baldur's Gate 3? We're going to dig into that. Microsoft has some huge plans for PC gaming. They've announced some very interesting things this week that seem to be responses to Epic, responses to Sony, and responses to Google in terms of what they are, in terms of what those companies are coming out with, and Microsoft has their answers to all of those things. So that's very interesting to see, and it kind of verifies a prediction that we put out there, or not a prediction, but some behind-the-scenes info that Cyberpunk put out there a few weeks ago on the podcast. Now, we weren't really planning to talk about this today, but BioWare has broken its silence about Anthem, and I didn't look into this very deeply, but I don't know.
It's kind of a disappointment, more or less.
It's kind of a disappointing announcement. It absolutely is, and honestly, they're doing like an open test server to basically they want to involve the community more in giving feedback and assisting in the development of the game, which is probably the best direction for them to go at this point. But
yeah, like 20 years later, they've discovered what a PTR is. Oh my god, it's amazing.
So they it's probably the best remedy for the disease, but it's disappointing that the disease had to happen in the first place. So anyway, if anyone out there is actually still interested in Anthem, there is some new news on that this week. But we're not going to be covering that terribly deeply. We are going to be talking of mostly, well, at least at first here, we're going to be talking about confusion about the Cyberpunk 2077 release date and what Jason Schreier has been tweeting about. Now, that there was basically a firestorm set off on, what day was this initial tweet actually sent? A couple days ago, I guess, where in reply to somebody on Twitter talking about the Cyberpunk 2077 2077 release date. Jason Schreier said, "I don't know where you saw that rumor, but Cyberpunk is absolutely not coming out this year." That is what he said a couple of days ago. And then yesterday...
It was like Wednesday. Or something like that.
Yeah, 29th. So I guess that was 3 days ago. Yeah, May has 31 days. So, anyway, so yesterday, he took to Twitter again and said, and replied to his own previous tweet and said, "This has gotten a lot of Reddit attention, so some clarity. I've heard from 3 sources that Cyberpunk was aiming for, wait for it, 2019. But belief around the studio was that it was an unrealistic target. I expect first half 2020 or maybe even an E3 announcement of 2019, then a delay to 2020. What are you doing, Jason? What are you trying to say here? There seems to be a bizarre mix of fact and opinion, and recently it seems like Jason Schreier is not able to separate the two. So we're going to do it for him here. So basically, it turns out that when he said that Cyberpunk is absolutely not coming out this year, that was not based on any factual information, such as something that maybe...
This coming out now. This coming out after he's interviewed the heads of the studio.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
that's
you had a lot of these. You had a lot of these websites that run in the rumor mill kind of side of things, who said this is proof quite concretely that we're not getting Cyberpunk this year. In fact, we're going to get it maybe even late next year or even 2021.
So they were assuming that he got from the studio heads that it's
Jason
not coming
Schreier knows exactly what he's talking about all the time. I mean, he just has so much access to and information. And so therefore, and that's why I was so annoyed on Wednesday during the podcast, is because I'm looking at all these articles going, no, we're definitely not getting it this year, probably not even next year. You guys better buckle in and wait a really long time.
Yeah.
And then this comes out, and then it's suddenly it's like an about face again, because it's and this is, again, if you want to know why journalism is dying, look no further than this problem.
Mm-hmm. Now, granted, this was done on Twitter and not in it's not done in a Kotaku article, which is, of course, the gaming journalist website that he works for. But still, when you say something like Cyberpunk is absolutely not coming out this year, and you do have this kind of access, and you do have this kind of job in journalism, that a lot of people are going to take that as factual, take that as like, oh man, this is something that like Marcin Nowinski told him or something. But no. What actually turns out to be the case is what he clarifies in quotes in the second tweet, where he says, "I've heard from 3 sources that Cyberpunk was aiming for 2019, which is exactly what we've been saying for well over a year now, and a lot of others have been saying as well. The target release date, at least their first target release date, is late 2019. And we are not guaranteeing that it comes out in 2019, but Saib, you still hold that there's a decent chance of that, correct? But I mean, of course, delays are possible.
Well, I've said that. So a company like CDPR, they have release date goals, and as they come up to one, they make careful assessments and judgments. And this is usually about a 6-month out process, where they're like, okay, do we feel that we can release at this particular time? Are we ready to push it or speed up? And that's kind of why, that's a little bit why crunch is a thing, is because 6 months out to a release, the game might be in a really bad, really terrible state. And you might think that there's no way this is going to come together. But then, as you get closer to the day, everything comes together and fits together just almost magically. In fact, BioWare has a word for it, and it's called BioWare Magic. And they expect it to just happen, right? And it hasn't for the last 2 games. And it's like, ugh.
Mm-hmm. That's BioWare we're talking about, not CDPR.
That's BioWare.
Yes.
So CDPR, they're measured. They did it. They hit it out of the park on The Witcher, Blood and Wine, and now they're sitting here looking at this and they're trying to make sure that they hit that again. If they get within, 3, 4, not 3, 4. If they get within 5 to 4 months, and things aren't shaping up, then they're going to push it back again. Right. They're going to start, and that's how they're going to react to, the problems. And I've said again and again and again, until we have an actual release date, we don't actually know when this is coming out. We know their big target days or particular times of the year. We know what they're wanting to release at. Their preferred releases are going to go 1, 3, 2, and then their actual release dates that they have an opportunity is going to go 1, 2, 3, and their their goals for particular company growth is again, it's going to be a little bit different, but that's kind of more or less how that stuff works.
Mm-hmm. So yes,
so it's pretty
these
standard.
big studios, they have these target release dates that they're aiming for, and it's like if we're not going to hit the first one, we move on to the next one, and there's likely 2 or 3 of those. But we know that their initial target release date is 2019, and Jason Schreier is confirming that from his sources, whoever they are. But then he goes on to say, but belief around the studio was that it was an unrealistic target. Now, I'm not...
Again, we know that he has not spoken with more than about 5 people at the studio. So where he's getting that info and how he's building that together is questionable at best.
Absolutely. Like, could this be info from the same sources that he talked to about the article about, where he referenced that the development is going the same direction as Anthem's development?
Most assuredly.
Like, if that's where he's getting this from, that it's an unrealistic target, well, that has the same problems in sourcing that, all of the other info which we broke down on a previous podcast, 133, I believe it was, and so you can check that out if you will. We've been talking a lot about Schreier lately in his articles about CD Projekt Red. But anyway,
here, just as a quick little add to that. There's a lot of people at a lot of bigger studios. There's a big chunk of developers who don't like and who don't trust a fair number of the media people. There's only a few of them that actually have pretty good respect within the community. One is Danny O'Dwyer, and he couldn't even himself stay in the industry anymore because it was just so problematic. It was just so difficult for him to stay there. That's why he created the documentary series. Is because he wanted to move away from the pressure. Like, he likes the editorials, and editorials are fine, but when it comes to you have to survive on the news, and then you have to start doing things that are not necessarily kosher or clean cut or honest. I think that's probably the best term, in order to keep up your views, because again, it's like you're reporting to a board, you're reporting to a boss, you're reporting to people who are interested in money, and they'll look at you and they'll say, this year you had 100,000, and then the next year you had 120,000, and then the next year you had 90,000. What gives? Why'd you screw up? Well, if you remember when you bought us out, we were only doing 50,000. And sometimes there's just not enough news, and that's why you have that dip. Unacceptable. Make the news. Because that's exactly what CNN and all these other crap companies have been doing for ages. When they run into a problem, they just create the not fake news, but they just create news. It's not necessarily fake, but it's probably overblown in some of these cases, especially games media, because it's not like, it's not like there's absolutely nothing to talk about, but there are times where it's like, well, let's just spin this into kind of a cool way, and that's why you have so many, articles about genitalia versus when you're. See, I'm trying to watch my words for a stupid algorithm. And that's why you have a lot of devs who dislike journalists. They really dislike the game journalists. Now, there's always some devs out there who are going to be thirsty for the attention, right? But in this particular case, I could say that overall, when I speak to a vast majority of devs in the industry, most of them cannot stand Schreier and cannot stand Kotaku. Because, yeah, they're great when they're advertising your game. They're absolutely horrendous when they're digging for dirt or when they're trying to put you in a bad light because it'll sell clicks.
Right.
Well, and so the vast majority of people do not talk to them. They prefer to talk to, like content creators like us or like other channels where it's like, where the goal is to just inform and then also to be entertaining and it's not really, you don't really focus, the more you focus on the negativity, then the more likely that it is your channel's not going to do well. There are a very small number of channels that focus on the, boosting negativity, and overall these channels don't do great in the long run. It's just the way that it kind of goes. Markiplier is Markiplier because he's mostly focuses on just the positive stuff. And that's fine, and that's just kind of the way things go. So in this particular instance, Jason's reporting from a very small number of developers who are actually willing to speak to him, who are actually interested in giving him information that he doesn't have. But these devs are not people in the know because they themselves are not people in the know. Because they've, in the majority of the cases, they've all left. I think he even had to admit that most of his sources at CDPR left CDPR a long time ago, or have left the project a while ago. And it's like,
yes, all of his sources on that previous article are former employees. So we
managed to figure out who most of them were, and those people are not going to give you a accurate look at the company or the project at all.
Right. Even if they're not on bad terms with the company, which, I mean, it's hard to say. Well, we know some of them aren't. But, if they haven't been there for a year, they're not going to have any idea what the project looks like right now. All right, so anyway, so he says belief around the studio was that it was an unrealistic target. Don't really know how accurate that statement is. I mean, obviously, I would buy that somebody, maybe a few people at least, thought it was an unrealistic target. Of course, that could very well be true, but then he goes on to say, I expect first half 2020 or maybe... This is interesting here, and this it looks like he's just trying to cover his butt here. Maybe even an E3 announcement of 2019, then a delay to 2020. That's a really interesting statement, because why would... If you're certain it's not coming 2019, why would you even think that there might be an E3 announcement of a 2019 release date? That makes no sense whatsoever. So it seems like he's trying to cover his butt with that statement because, well, I mean, he's going to look really foolish if he comes out and says, absolutely no chance of 2019, and then a week later at E3 it's announced for 2019. So he's saying even if it's announced for 2019, then it's probably going to be delayed till 2020. But this is his opinion. This is the important point. This is not based on any inside knowledge he has. This is his opinion. So, and it's not necessarily based on anything super factual. All right, Andre Velasquez, thank you so much for the super chat. Really, really appreciate that. And that's about... I think that's about all there is to say about Jason Schreier at this point.
Well, Notional in the chat, he brings up an exactly a good point. He realized that because, again, and I was gonna kind of go into this in a rant, but for the most part, as a journalist and as somebody within an industry where it's like you're commenting and making predictions a fair amount of the time, which is what Jason's doing, and what he does. It's part of his job. It's part of my job. You're an absolute idiot if you make broad sweeping assessments and just go to one side, pretty hardcore. And that's what Jason did. Jason here walked in and said, basically, oh yeah, there's no way that this is going to happen. Absolutely zero. Well, what's absolutely zero? 0%. Whenever I'm giving a tactical assessment, or whenever I'm giving a financial assessment, or whenever I'm looking at a polling information, I will never, ever, 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 ever say 100% or 0%. I would never say that. I in some cases I might say 99%, but that's actually few and far between. I actually break it down to numbers that I can like pull and understand. Right now it's like it's between a 16 and 80%, depending on the variables that you're looking at, that we're going to get a release of Cyberpunk this year. But immediately following, if we do not see a release date announced on the Microsoft stage floor on Sunday, then immediately you can assume that it's been pushed, with a high 90% chance that it's been pushed into 2020, if it or financial year of 2019, which extends just into it's a little bit into 2020.
Yeah, to March,
and that's okay. Yeah, and that's fine. Because again, it's like they're aiming for quality, but one thing that they're not going to do is I really don't think they're going to announce it for 2019 and then not deliver. I think they expect, because of the way, and again, we said it last year. If you were looking at the game, the footage, the gameplay, if that game was in the hands of any other studio, any other big AAA studio, whether it was in the hands of EA or Activision, that thing would have been dropped 18 months ago. Right? Because they would have said, it's good enough, it'll make us a ton of money, ship it, and then we'll start working on the DLC. Or we'll start working on the second one, and then we're gonna microtransaction it up, the yin yang.
Right.
That's essentially what we're expecting, what we were kind of looking at. But because this isn't them, we understand that when they say 2019, I think they're going to mean 2019. They really do not like delays. They really do not like delaying or pushing back their release dates. And it's something that ever since Witcher 3, they've basically said going forward, they're going to try to never, ever, ever have this happen again. And you can't say never, never, because again, only an idiot does that in these kind of industries. But you try to be as truthful as you can, and you try to be as reasonable as you can with your assessments. So when Jason's put out, oh yeah, it's absolutely not coming out this year, absolutely no way, and I hear this all the time from professionals. Well, there's absolutely no way this would happen, then it happens. Oh well, that surprised me. Okay, then maybe you shouldn't be in this industry. If you're getting surprised and shocked by things that I can sit back and say, all right, well, data shows that we've got a 40-50 with a 10% for anomaly. If we got 75-20, it's this is the kind of stuff that it's your job to know this and to communicate this with clear and concise words if you're in the public facing side of it. And it's moronic to sit there and say, oh yeah, this is never going to happen. It's like, yeah, you say that and it'll happen. Like sometimes Murphy's Law will just make that happen just cause, just to spite you. I swear, because I've seen this so many times. It's like, in the contract work that I do right now, it's like I bet you this is gonna do this, and just thinking to myself, just thinking to myself, and then it's like Murphy's Law is like, nope, it's not this. It's completely 100% different than what you were thinking. But that's like in the scenario of like working through it and trying to like figure it out. And it's like how often Murphy's Law will kind of pop up and say, not today, You got it wrong. And before you make your public assessment of this, or before you turn in your work, you actually do the work, right? And in a lot of these cases, a lot of these people, I think they do the preliminary stuff. They make the guesswork, and then they say, yeah, that's what it is. And then they walk away. Because it's like I could spend more time on this, or I could start working on another project, or I can go out drinking, or I can go do, go get some freaking praise heaped on me by the masses. It's like, yeah, okay, if you're an idiot, sure, go ahead and do that. If you wanna get somebody killed in some of the other work that I do, it's like, yeah, you go ahead and say that. Go ahead and make that assessment like an idiot, and blood will be on your head, because it's like it's absolutely mental that. I mean, it's mental that people do that in scenarios where it's like real world consequences can get people killed. It's even more bizarre to me outside of that, where people will do that with like billions or millions and millions of dollars of a company. They'll just throw out an article that paints somebody in a horrendous light, and just hope, do it for clicks, and know that probably might even end the career of the company, because it's like public opinion is worth a little bit too much these days. General, like, quick fire public opinion, especially that on Twitter, is worth zero. It's worth zero. And I don't understand why companies will treat the 5 people that just a quick aside. A company came recently and said, so yeah, we did this one announcement, and we started getting hate from Twitter, and all these like verified accounts started like giving us crap and sending us emails directly that said, that they're going to boycott this, and they're going to, this is going to be horrible for our company. And I said, how many? They said, well, the blue check marks. I said, yeah. How many of those blue check marks did you get? 3. It's like, did you even look to see if they've used your products in the past? So, well, they didn't really seem like the ones to use our product. I'm like, chances are they don't, and they never were, and they were never willing to. They're just doing this because it's hate fuel that they can use. It's like, and then they go, oh, so you don't think there'll be a blowback on this? I'm like, no, you go do it. In fact, double down on it, and I bet you sales will go up by 20%. Well, guess who was right? Anyways.
All right.
So, yes. Now we could probably move on, because
all right. Well,
I don't want us to turn into a broken record when it comes to Jason Schreier. Generally speaking, I've said that Kotaku's not doing well. They're up against the wall. He's got to do this for this. I don't like that he's been going out of his way to target some of the stuff that I like, and I'm willing to call him out on it. But as far as like, if he's wrong in a week and a half, we will mock him probably one more time, and then we'll probably basically kind of have a finish for that, aside from the time down the road when Kotaku folds, because it's like no, especially if he's like majorly wrong. Yeah, we're gonna call you out. We're gonna call you out on that.
all right, everybody.
I did want to rant a little bit this morning, but there's all this smoke in the air, and it's really, really, really brutal on the vocal synthesizers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, voice does sound a little bit rough, but yeah, there's been, a couple days ago, we woke up and it looked like, basically,
end of days.
We were in Fallout or something. It looked like I almost tweeted out like, did an apocalypse happen that I'm not aware of? Like what was going on? Because the world was yellow outside. It was weird.
It was yellow and orange, and it was raining ash. I got out and it was raining ash, and I'm like, yeah, just so we all know that it's raining ash right now. I tried to take a picture, but it didn't really come through in the way that I wanted to, so I didn't post it. But like, my goodness, it was raining freaking ash from the sky. And none of these fires are even remotely close to us. They're like, freaking almost 1,000 miles away or more. But it's so weird how that happens.
The winds were just in the exact right direction that it blew a ton of smoke right at us. All right. So you are listening to the Augmented Reality podcast, and if you want to keep the conversation going, we're having some great conversation in the live chat today. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the links in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about, and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. So a couple more topics to get to today. Larian Studios is teasing something. They put a big stylized number 3 up on their website. Larian Studios, of course, the studios behind the Divinity Original Sin RPG series, and they are working on a game currently, a tactical RPG called Divinity Fallen Heroes. Now, of course, Divinity Original Sin 2 is, it was a pretty good. It was a pretty good game. It was a pretty runaway hit, and
it was a huge hit. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? A little hit. It was a huge hit. Oh my goodness.
I was understating it. It was and it's a really good game if you like an not isometric, but if you like a top-down version of a top-down turn-based RPG kind of a game. So the number 3. Big number 3 was posted on their website. Could it be Divinity Original 3? Could it be Divinity Original Sin 3? Well, very possibly. But some very some curious people did some digging, and apparently, if you download the actual, hang on, what was it here? Apparently there's a video, and if you download this video and open it in a text editor and look at the code, there are multiple references to Baldur's Gate 3 and Wizards of the Coast, and this has gotten some talk happening.
So first of all, we're not quite done with Cyberpunk, so stick around for this, because there's some stuff that's coming out just right now, literally.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
As we're doing the podcast, it's mostly in the same vein of what we've been talking about. What we'll swing back around to it here before the end of the show. However, about this whole Baldur's Gate 3 thing, a couple of months ago, and we were trying to find the particular episode. So if you happen to know, or if you feel like scouting it and looking for it, be my guest. I casually mentioned that I know who was working on the next Baldur's Gate game, and that I couldn't confirm it or talk about it directly because it was a really small thing. And I also talked about how Larian Studios is working on something really, really cool. And I kind of did that more or less to kind of like, I was being super cryptic. I was like, I've got info that wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Certain Larian Studios is working on a certain number 3 game, and it's probably not what you think. So anyways, I'm upset now that I didn't tease that, and I didn't talk about that a little bit more, that I didn't really put it out, because Baldur's Gate is it's not known by everybody these days, but it was probably the pinnacle game of my childhood, as far as before I hit. Don't want to date myself here, but it's like young Cyb was interested in a lot of games, and Baldur's Gate and the series of games that came out from BioWare around that was basically like the best, right? It was basically the pinnacle. And it's what led into the Fallout series 1 and 2, and it was just beautiful. It was just absolutely beautiful. And so I'm really excited to see that, Baldur's Gate 3 is being worked on. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 has had numerous other attempts to bring it out, right? There's been a couple of attempts to make the game function, and it just didn't ever do what people were looking for, so it never really got off the ground. There was even a couple of websites that were set up for Baldur's Gate 3 on previous companies that ended up canceling the project. So it's one of these games where it's like, we're really hoping that we finally can see this really come forward. So, yeah.
Right, and that
I
would be
think
very cool. That'll definitely be one that I check out if that turns out to be what it is. Baldur's Gate 2 was my first real RPG that I dove into. I think it was really my first. Now, would you, at that stage of the game, would you call BioWare a AAA studio at that point where they were putting out Baldur's
no,
Gate and all those?
no. That's one of the things that made them a triple A studio. And I actually was going to mention this about CDPR. CDPR has never released a game as a triple A company. And you'll go, what are you talking about? Witcher 3 was like the best triple.
Sorry,
Witcher
you,
3
you cut out there for a second.
Oh, I was my voice not doing well. So I was going to mention about the whole, AAA company. What makes a AAA company a AAA company? Depending on your interpretation of it, it's basically like you have to put out a AAA game first to be considered a AAA studio. You don't say, hey, we're a AAA studio. What games have you released? Nothing. It's going to be released, though. It's like, then you're not a AAA studio. You might have the budget of a AAA studio, but until you release a product that is considered and classified as AAA, then you're not a AAA studio. Witcher 1 was not a AAA studio, or was not a AAA game. Witcher 2 was not even a AAA game. Witcher 3 was their first AAA, really truly AAA game, and they are now an established AAA studio, but they have not yet released a full AAA game. They put a Gwent, but it's not really. It was never really, AAA like contender, right? You wouldn't put it into the boxing ring against God of War, for crying out loud. So it's like, basically they're sitting back, they're looking at it, and they're going, okay, this is now our new AAA studio. This also is why there's been some rumors and some questions going around that that there's no way that Cyberpunk will release this year because they haven't filed for any QA teams, any QA companies, quality assurance companies, to come out, test, and run their game and make sure that it's free of bugs. You hear this a fair bit in some of the circles that we travel in, some people in the Discord. This is true that they haven't. It is also true that a lot of studios do. A lot of AAA studios do this. This is part of the process. It is incorrect to assume that CDPR is going to be using one of these companies. They are not going to be using one of these companies, and I hate to inform the people who believe that these companies are a vital part of the AAA release system. A lot of people think that the industry propagates this as a thing you're supposed to do, as a heavy reliance on the thing that you're supposed to do. But this is not what CDPR is doing, because these companies also tend to leak like sieves. Like they have stringent policies and that stuff. I can tell you that if I'm shopping for info, one of the first places I'll go is QA teams, because they talk like, they talk like drunken sailors. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like, hey, can you tell me about this game? Oh no, there's no way I can take you to talk about this game. Okay, here's some alcohol. Oh, let me tell you about this game. Oh, cool. Everything you need. Like it's so terrible. It's so terrible. So generally speaking, no, CDPR has no intention of using a company like this for their flagship, their new flagship IP, as well as their new flagship release title that's dropping. There's no way that they're entrusting this to anybody outside of their immediate environment. And if you're wondering why they've recruited about 100 QA testers, that's why they've recruited about 100 QA testers. So I hate to inform somebody who believes that their industry is so vital and so important that your industry is not vital nor important to certain types of people within the industry. It's kind of a joke. And sadly, some people don't understand the difference between that. And sorry. Anyways, as far as how this gets back to Larian Studios, again, kind of a very small studio, out of the blue. Same thing that happened to BioWare many years ago. BioWare was working on these games. They put out Baldur's Gate. Huge critical reception. It got better and better over time. Did number 2, then they did a couple of the other stuff, the other games. And they worked close. Like Black Isle was involved in some of this stuff, and we had this peak of like isometric adventure games back then. And we're starting to see the public really hunger for it, especially when Larian makes the Divinity Original Sin 2, they make it so good. And they make it so visually appealing, and they make it so interesting and fascinating. It looks like pretty much any other like adventure game where you got a party, but it's just the aesthetics, the aspect of the view, everything is just so good, and it's a wild, crazy hit. So now we have them stepping into the role as like this big. Now they're working on this huge title, and we're going to be getting something truly amazing with this. If any of the stuff I've been hearing about it is true, we're basically going to get another amazingly well written story that, and I really wish I could, but I can't. The people who have been behind the writing of Baldur's Gate 3 are the best in the business. Absolutely, hands down, some of the best people in the business. Very excited for that. We're going to have some amazing writing. We're going to have, again, amazing voice work actors behind these characters, behind these stories. We're going to have this Larian with the beautiful, friggin' beautiful engine that has had so much interaction with the community and the modding community as well, that we're going to see a really, really amazing project. And I don't know if it can become like the game of the year, like if it can, unseat some of these big massive games, and it's not coming soon. It's not showing up this year. It's being teased this year. The earliest we might get it is probably late 2020. But again, I'm saying probably not, most absolutely. I'm not saying that. Right now it's looking like, the earliest we might get this is in a little bit. They're definitely teasing this. I would love this game to come out tomorrow, but realistically, they've been working on. Oh yes, and they started teasing. Do you have that tweet that I sent you? Yeah. Here's this tweet. So they started teasing, and they started teasing everybody. Now this is most likely has to do with the expansion to Divinity Original Sin 2 coming out. But there's this tentacle waving outside of one of their windows. So that's kind of really kind of hilarious. I'll drop it in the chat here because it's honestly so hilarious. But yeah, this company is starting to tease a lot, and they're starting to do a lot of crazy, funny, cool stuff. But what they're going to be giving us in the future is going to be even better than what we're thinking that we're going to get. So I'm really excited. I really think that this is absolutely, like, I'm so happy for this. I would sound more excited, but in all honesty, it's like I don't want to get too much. If I try to sound a little bit too more excited, I'm gonna get giddy, and you guys don't want to hear me when I'm giddy. Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, this is generally speaking, this is a good move. I really hope. I've been saying for years, I've been advising for years that Wizards of the Coast get off their freaking butts and actually get into really with a desire. It doesn't have to be them, but they have to like get D&D back into the video game space with a really good engine. So.
Mm-hmm. Schoolman says, is Cyb going to say next podcast who he thinks the best writers are? How's that for an inside joke?
No, I can't say.
Of course
sure
not. But
are.
Yeah, no, he's. I think he's playing off of your, how in. The the influencers on Twitter who are saying, oh, I got
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. No, I
can't
got
say
you, I
what
got you
I'm
now.
going to go see at E3, but it's my most anticipated game. And then a little while later they'll be like, oh man, I'm so looking I'm so looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077. It's my most anticipated game. It's like I couldn't tell you what. So I think he's playing off of that with the whole who are the best writers in the business. So
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I'll also say is like we follow some of these people on Twitter and we interact with them. So I also don't want to like tip my hand or incorrectly tip my hand. It's like, oh, some of the best people in the business, and then like, oh, you happen to talk to so and so who's a world famous writer on Twitter yesterday or day before. Therefore, that's the person you're referring to. No, I'm making it quite clear. I'm not saying who the writer is at all. I'm not even going to hint at it. All I'm going to say is that some of the best people are involved in this project, and I will leave it at that. And it doesn't tie into anything that just so happens to have happened on Twitter or anything like that recently. So, it's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Some big announcements out of Microsoft this week, and this is we're looking at some big shakeups in PC gaming, well, in gaming in general, over the next little while. We've got Google Stadia coming in, of course. Amazon's working on something. Apple's working on something, but then Microsoft has come out, and they've really shown that they're putting more of an emphasis on PC gaming, in addition to their signature console, of course, the Xbox. But they've also taken a very pro-consumer stance in some ways, and so we're going to dive into this a little bit here. There are three major things they've announced. One is a Game Pass, so it's kind of a basically a subscription service, which and if you sign up for this, they offer you a wide library of games. We've seen this kind of a thing before. We see this with EA Access. I think does Sony have one of these? Trying to remember now.
I have one of what? Sorry.
I like a Game Pass type subscription.
I'm not. I think it's on the table.
So they might
really
be coming. So there might be one coming out. But anyway, we know EA has one of these. Ubisoft. It looks like Ubisoft is coming out with one of these. Anyway, so they've announced So there's going to be some kind of an Xbox or Microsoft Game Pass. Second thing they've announced is xCloud, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Side, but this is going to be, so this is kind of a cloud gaming service which is going to bring Xbox games to the PC. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're bringing they're bringing a ton of their titles for the Xbox. They're bringing them to the PC because, again, you're an idiot if you don't include the PC. PC environment is a good, I mean, if you're counting mobile in, it's a lot less. If you're not counting mobile games in, as far as like gaming consoles, the PC holds 66% of the market. You're an absolute if you think that cutting yourself off from this is a good idea. There are a lot of game developers who are like, yeah, can we get this on the PC? No, we're going to put this on the console exclusively because it's going to sell more consoles. It's like, yeah, but it's not going to make our IP famous. It's not going to make our IP talked about every single day by millions and millions of people. It's going to make our IP kind of like relegated to, far off thoughts and cool memories, and it's like remember when I really wish that was more of a thing because that would be so cool, but it's not because exclusivity. It's too bad. It's like again, more and more devs are queuing into the idea that it's like, yeah, we don't like this idea, so we want you to embrace more of this stuff. Now companies like Microsoft, they're starting to understand this. Really starting to understand this.
Right. And I should clarify, this is going to be a Stadia-like service, which is going to deliver console quality gaming on any device. So not just PC, but it's going to bring a lot of their Microsoft gaming library to a much broader audience. And of course, you can play them on the PC.
You might even be, if they can stream it well enough, you're even going to be able to start to play these things on mobile devices with a controller.
Right.
Which again, it's like this is what they've been hoping for, and honestly, I've been hoping for this too, because this finally means that hopefully we'll get an end to the disgusting mobile stores. Like these mobile stores for most of these mobile games are just disgusting. It's like they're literally just garbage.
Mm.
They're just asset flipped garbage. Even, I mean, that stupid Diablo game is basically just an asset flip. It's like, really, this is your grand scheme to like include mobile gaming? No, once the streaming thing is a thing and becomes like more and more accessible, and they start to include like, you know, controller setups for the mobile devices, eventually you'll see a lot of those games crash and burn, and that more traditional gaming things that are now streamable will become more and more of the common theme when it comes to mobile devices.
Right.
I mean, it seems to be where the market's heading. I could be wrong, but yeah.
All right. So yes. So we've got that coming, but we've also have they seem to have a commitment toward more. They basically came out with a statement saying they believe in consumer choice as far as where they get their games, and so it sounds like they are not, with, you know, as they continue to release games on PC, they are not going to be just exclusively putting things on the Windows Store, but also on Steam, also on other stores. Now, we talked about a while back, months ago, we talked about how it looks like Xbox and Microsoft were gearing up for some kind of a partnership with Steam, and it looks like this may be part of, you know, what we were seeing back then. But this does appear to be sort of an answer to the Epic Games Store and to an extent what Sony is doing with releasing some of their exclusives on Epic. But basically, Microsoft is saying that they, you know, the games that they develop for PC are not going to be Xbox, or sorry, they're not going to be Microsoft Store exclusive. So you take all of this in combination, it really looks like Microsoft is going to be bringing a lot to PC gaming in the future and to gaming in general. And like I've said,
Oh man, oh geez, oh man, I guess it's almost as if, like, you know, we totally saw that coming. That's my Morty voice. Yeah, again, shocker about the Microsoft and Steam thing. It's like, again, it's almost as if like we're in the know. Yeah. Ultimately, like, I just want to add this. It's like we know that Google is a huge company. Amazon is a huge, massive company that's I think they're even worth more than Google. I know that the guy who runs Amazon's the richest person in the world. So really looking at it, it's like even if you're Microsoft, you're still a small company in comparison to Google and Amazon. And if you're, you know, Steam, yeah, you're a tiny little rodent in compared to these absolutely massive corporations, and they are going to crush you. So we will see more and more and more of these team ups. We are even seeing Microsoft and Sony team up to combat the threat of Google. Now, does this mean we're going to get cross-platform games on you know, and we're not going to have any more exclusives, and they're teaming up to be? No. They're just sharing some API, and they're basically saying, hey, we've been fighting a war for a really long time. You know, between, I don't know, say North Carolina, South Carolina, have been fighting a war for a long time in some dystopian, post-apocalyptic future kind of thing. But, you know, as they're fighting each other, suddenly, like, aliens in a Cthulhu army land at the same time. It's like, okay, guys, we're not, like, joining borders or anything, but let's focus our fire on those guys first before we start, like, shooting each other about, you know, the small stuff, right? So that it's basically, it's like it's not an alliance. It's like a semi,
like a partnership of necessity.
it's a partnership of necessity. Yeah, that's a good example. They're basically saying, okay, let's not fight each other on this, and let's just kind of go back and forth a little bit on working together. I'll give you some resources, you give me some resources. We're still not friends, but we're still gonna, we're gonna push back on this. So yeah, that's basically what they've been doing. And other companies such as Steam, who have been working on building a positive relationship with Microsoft for a while now, and Microsoft is building a relationship with them, suddenly realize, hey, you know what? This is really important. And I said months ago that we're going to start to see this push more and more of Microsoft and Steam working together because they have bigger fish to fight. Epic's one of them, Amazon's one of them, Google's one of them, and really when they boil down to it, they ran some numbers. They ran some numbers together. Do you know how many crossover players there is on both the Xbox and Steam? It's like more than there is on Steam versus Epic. More than there is Steam versus Sony, and Steam versus Epic as well. It's like there's a commonality of players that are using both Microsoft stuff and Steam stuff, more so than almost any other company. They realize that they're not going to buy out or team up or anything like that, but they are going to work together because it's in their mutual interest. Quick answer to Avery asking me, am I still playing the Division 2? I just right now I don't have the time. We were planning on doing more content with it, but it's like they did a couple of patches that are kind of weird and stupid, and they really dropped the ball as far as like the abilities goes, and I don't want just another straight up shooter. There's a ton of games that are just straight up shooters. I wanted a game that you could incorporate abilities and weapons together, to create some really fun combination stuff, and they really have dropped that. It's all about just the guns and the guns and the guns and the guns and nothing but the guns. Skills are basically off the table now. So it's a lot less exciting for me to be able to log in if I had the time, which I don't have the time. So unfortunately, so Kurt's poll came out just recently. Game I was really excited for. That came out like almost a month ago now. I still have not had a chance to even boot that game up, to even do like the first like intro mission, because I've just been too busy. So, but busy on good stuff, writing a book, and it's coming along really well. So if y'all are interested in high fantasy, then hold your britches, because we get some cool stuff coming.
All right, so
sorry, I know that was a big segue there.
Right. Yeah. No worries. I think we covered it all, and there's a lot we could dive into there, but we'll just give you that sort of high level overview. So expect some interesting things, especially as we go into E3 and E3 week coming up next week, and of course the major press conferences start a week from tomorrow. Now. Mm-hmm. EA is doing a few press conferences, or they're doing some sort of events on the Friday and Saturday of next weekend. Haven't really looked into what they're doing. I don't know if there's any kind of official schedule up or not. But Bethesda and Microsoft are doing their press conferences on Sunday. And so we will be covering those. We will be live streaming those with commentary until we get kicked off the air for copyright infringement or something, but hopefully that doesn't happen this year. Now, the Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast, a collaboration between us, the Mad Queen Show, the Neon Arcade, and Last Known Meal, happens every Sunday, so you can find that tomorrow on one of those 4 channels. Whose is it on this weekend?
It is going to be on. I don't actually remember off the top of my head. It's
I know next weekend it's on the Mad Queen Show's channel, and that is, of course, the same day that we're doing the Bethesda and Xbox press conferences. I think there might be one more press conference we're doing there as well. And then the following week after that, so after all of E3, the podcast will be back on our channel. So
It's on either Neons or Last Knowns, and I can't remember right off the top of my head because it was on the back burner of like things that I had to remember and focus on today. So
right. So one of those channels, one of those two channels, it'll be on tomorrow. Agent Ghost asks, "Are you excited for Halo Infinite?"
yeah, there's supposedly a lot of really, really cool open world tech that they've been working on. Some of the latest AI is going to be built into this. So apparently the NPCs are going to be actually like doing stuff. They're not just going to be basically like standing around waiting for you. The world's going to feel alive, like really, really, really alive. And this is honestly probably like I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for this because I'm I haven't been a huge Halo player in a really long time, but it's the temptation of having like one of the biggest setups for an open world system and how they make that world like alive. I'm more interested in the technology than the actual game. So, yeah. And just kind of putting it into perspective, it's like some of these really cool companies like Obsidian is going to get access to this technology when they're working on their next open world game. So, and one of the reasons why I'm primarily excited for Infinite is say Infinite is just smashes it out of the park and the open world system is like just the best we've ever seen. Now, fast forward 3 years. Take that technology, take the giant cloud technology and like massive like world computing power that we've been working on for games, combine that with Obsidian's story writing ability, and we're gonna get the biggest bloody game we've ever seen as far as an open world, truly immersive like Fallout New Vegas style of things to get. Oh my god, it's gonna be amazing. And that's why I'm primarily excited. I'm really excited for this as a general concept, and that's why I'm the most excited. Are you wanting to wrap up, or should we swing back around to the
Oh yeah, let's
Cyberpunk
swing
stuff?
back around to the Cyberpunk stuff. You said something was happening.
Yeah. So
Currently?
just in generally, there's been a couple more articles drop about this, and they're really starting to irk me. You've got I don't even know this website. Never even heard of them before. Their 2019 isn't happening for Cyberpunk 2077. So bad news is the following confirmation, not information, confirmation from Jason Schreier is that CD Projekt Red will not be releasing this in 2019 and most likely not in 2020. It's like, great, awesome.
Where are they getting that now? Because he
cowards.
says even his opinion is that it's the first half of 2020. That's right in his tweet. I expect.
Yeah, but again, these companies, they're not even checking this stuff. They just put these articles out like the mass consumed BS that it is. And I at this point, I'm hoping that it's released for 2019 more so than not for the fact that I want to play it, but more so for the fact that I honestly want these companies to just eat the negativity of like, well, you just promised this a week ago. We can't trust you when it comes to any news because you're absolute crap at your job. At this point, this is honestly what I'm hoping for. We've got another couple of articles that have come out today. Again, it's like back in September 2017, we informed you that there was a listing which they didn't get that story. They didn't get that story. They repeated that story from somebody else. Okay? That there was a scheduled release for 2019, and we were believing that this was going to be Cyberpunk 2077, and up until a few days ago, we were really excited about this, but that was until Jason Schreier confirmed that it's not coming out this week, or this year, it's coming out next year. It's like, again,
That's bizarre.
why?
It's like they can't even read. It's like they can't even read his tweet. Like, that's not even what he said.
And you know, it's just the bold statements. Like some of the sites, like GameRant has a statement on theirs that just came out less than an hour ago, where it's like, oh yeah, 2019 release date, supposedly what they're aiming for, but it's unlikely. Versus other websites that are saying it's not happening. Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
it's infuriating. This is quote unquote journalism in our industry. It's kind of ridiculous, but anyway,
it's sad at the current state that it's in, and it's it's going to be overshadowed by the release of info. And again, we're not guaranteeing that this is going to come out in 2019. As we've always said, there's a lot more to anticipate. There's a lot more to wait for. There's a lot more checking that we have to do. And we know that they've had their target release date. We've known this for a very, very long time. And could it be delayed? Of course, it could still be delayed. Next little tidbit, are we going to see a second Cyberpunk game announced? Probably yeah. Not absolutely yeah, but there's a good chance for it. So yeah, I hope you're all excited for that, because this next week is going to be really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Hello to Rashad Holmes, new listener. Welcome to the podcast. Not sure if you've been listening for a while or just new to the live chat, but welcome. We're glad to have new people joining our listenership, and we really appreciate all of the people that share the show around, that slam that like button, that leave comments, that do all of that stuff. We appreciate it so much. So definitely, if you haven't already, take a moment to slam that like button and subscribe to the channel before you switch to a new tab, or before you switch to some other video that you want to watch this morning. We appreciate you doing that. I want to thank everybody who supports the show and for the great conversation in the live chat. Thank you especially to our Patreon supporters, Shannon Vega, Old Man Manson, our 2 anonymous supporters, our channel members, Captain Dammit and Jason Cropper, and also to Andre Velasquez for the generous live chat today, the super chat, I mean. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to this podcast, we appreciate your interactions on those platforms as well. And feel free to join us Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings for the live show on YouTube, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash Unity, and on behalf of Cybsidian, thank you all so much for listening. We will talk to you next week.